around enough at home and neglected his wife, so he decided he was going to turn over a new leaf. 2 days before Mother's Day, he thought he would surprise her, and he went to the florist after work and bought a bouquet of flowers. When he came home, the wife was like all in disarray. Her hair's all undone, sticking out, looked really tired, and she was just starting to cry. So I really can't believe the day I've had it. Kids were horrible, they were fighting all day. Then we had a break in the plumbing, a leak, and I had to call a plumber. And then, would you know that your son went and broke his arm? And I had to take him over to the hospital. And now, on top of all that, you come home obviously drunk. He wasn't drunk. It is difficult to be a mother. I wouldn't know, of course, just knowing what I've done to my own mother. I've seen what a lot of other people have done to their mothers. It's good that we have this day to celebrate their mothers. It should almost be a church religious holiday. And originally it was actually done as a means to sell greeting cards. And there's about 149 million, the last thing I read, sold every year.
Wow.
Greeting cards. It's some 14 and a half, maybe 15 million or billion that we spent for mothers this Mother's Day. 15 billion. Hopefully, Mom doesn't have to cook. It is also the busiest day for the restaurants and the lunch hour. Yeah. Valentine's Day is our heaviest dinner hour for the restaurants. It's also the #1 day of making long-distance phone calls. People call. Before the advent of people moving so far away from home, it was the third biggest church attendance day, because mothers would ask their children, come to church with me. Mothers care a great deal for their children's salvation. And I know a lot of women that suffer all the time because their children don't want anything to do with religion, with Christ, with the church. And a lot of them don't have children who are saved. They receive that gift of salvation. And I know that costs, it hurts. It's interesting that a lot of people have said, I've even heard from professors, I've read this in another place, they shouldn't preach about Mother's Day because it's a painful subject. And I know that it can be, because there's a lot of mothers who have lost children. A lot of us who have lost their mothers. There's a lot of strife where mothers and daughters have never been reconciled with one another. Mothers are a great gift, and it is something. They're a gift from God to us. And in many ways, the closest thing you will know here on earth to God. And since when is it in church that we should ever speak on something that might cause pain? As a matter of fact, you can preach on just about anything. I mean, any cause pain. But what we're here to be made you happy all the time? No.
Fluffy.
The funny thing is, not a whole lot of heroines in the Bible. There's not a whole lot of roles talking about women and the suffering that women have gone through and the sacrifices that have been made. And the reality is, they have always long been the backbone of the church.
Amen. Amen to
They
that.
are the hand that rocks the cradle. They have a great deal of influence raising up their children in such a way that as they get older, they know which way to turn. That's scriptural. So it's good that we pause and we say thank you to mothers everywhere. Those who are mothers to others, even who aren't their own children. It's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
They indeed are, especially a godly woman, the most wonderful creation that God's given us. And
Amen.
they are wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we move into the godly woman, I know that a lot of you have been like my mother, worn out the carpet, pacing the floor, wondering where their children are at that moment, and often wearing out their knees, praying. My mom did. I remember when my mom would pray for me with her friends, I could tell when that was going on. It's like I could kind of feel it. There was a something that was a turmoil, and then at the same time there'd be turmoil going on around me. It wasn't like people pray, oh, pray for my son, and bless my son or daughter.
Snagging on the hoodie.
Sometimes you gotta pray that God just throws something really difficult in their way, enough to bring them to Christ. Mary didn't have to do that. Mary never had to discipline her eldest son. He just wasn't the one that caused troubles, was he? Now, it's a great picture here, a very human picture of this story of the wedding in Cana. Where there's Mary, who is, I don't know if it's a family member or just a close friend, invites her, and then invites her son and the disciples. So I wonder if that was why they had run out of wine. And it was wine. I'm going to tell you right now that it wasn't grape juice. The Mediterranean climate is going to turn within 2 weeks to either vinegar or it's going to turn to wine. And of course, people go off on that whole subject, have a difficult time believing that Jesus celebrated. Mary celebrated. They had weddings. The weddings then were a big deal. They wouldn't just, for a couple of hours here and then the reception for a couple of hours. Oh, no. This was days and days celebration. That's a big deal. It cost a lot of money, and I can understand how it was that this gentleman ran out of all the wine. And the wine steward there, he's paid to do that. He's a caterer, basically. So that the family doesn't have to worry about taking care of this, that, and the other thing, but can be with the extended guests, their family, and so forth. That's a good time. And so when it comes down to that they run out of wine, there's a great embarrassment. And it tells you a little something about Mary. She's very deeply concerned for her friends and family. And she knows her son. Now, this is his first public miracle. I don't know if we don't know in his word whether he had ever done another miracle before this. But she had great confidence in her son. And she knew basically who he was and said, son, why don't you do something for me to help out? And then he said, woman, which is kind of an interesting way to address your mother. It's kind of actually a mutual term, but not for your mother.